All right, Shalom. I'd like to start off by giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS, better known as Great Millstone, who rule well. And as always, we give peace and salutations unto the hopeful elect, that be like the speckled bird scattered across the four corners of the earth. To you, I say Shalom. And this video is going to be entitled that Israelite men can have heathen women as concubines, or something to that effect. And a few days ago, I did a live on TikTok, another platform that I use to help bring out the word. And there was a woman who came up on there, and she got hurt in her feelings because we, in the rest of the Yakim and some of the Akwath, were in agreements pertaining to the scripture that a man can have more than one woman. And what you see here on the screen, we're in the book of Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter, and she brought out Deuteronomy Chapter 7, verse 4, okay, as a means to justify that an Israelite man cannot be with any heathen woman because of, what that particular nation of woman will do, which is lead our sons and our daughters away from Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai and to serving other gods. But with all of that being said, what that lady failed to realize is if she would have kept reading down the very next verse, all right, there's an exception on what we must do if we decide to deal with those nations, all right? Mainly in this chapter is going into the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, which all comes from the progenitor father, which is Ham, okay, one of the sons of Noah. So let's have a read about this, and let's see if we can get some precepts. Well, again, I don't want to make this too long. I want to get straight to the point. All right, hit a couple of precepts, go into some history a little bit so you guys can get the understanding of what this is actually talking about. So this is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1, and it reads, "When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, it hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou." Right? Salakia, let me just make sure this is on silent so we don't get no disturbance. Salakia for that. Verse 2, it says, "And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them." Verse 3, "Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son." Verse 4, "For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord Yahweh be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly." Right? So let's focus on the verses 3 and 4. The reason why we cannot intermingle mainly with these 7 nations that are mentioned within this chapter, which are the Hamitic tribes, is due to the reason because, one, if we make a covenant with those nations, okay, what will happen is, giving an example, and I always use this in many of my lessons, if I saw an Ishmaelite woman, which is a so-called Arab woman, okay, and I just had to have her, what will happen is in modern day, today's time, generally, if I will go to her parents, they will tell me that upon me joining house to house, that I will have to convert to their religion, which will be of an Islamic faith. And prior to me doing that, if I were to making a league of an agreement with them, which would be in the form of a covenant, and to take part and practice within their religion, then that will make me go off. Okay. And I have pretty much put Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai aside to go and serve another god in stone, which they worship over there in Mecca, and the Prophet Muhammad as well, to a certain degree. Now, what this is saying here, okay, this is going into that because there is a difference, all right, Now, when you make a marriage, what people fail to realize, you have to understand marriages is a form where families come together. Okay. It's not just about love. Okay. Which they teach you in modern time. What you guys have to understand, marriages back then, okay, was either that particular father who had a daughter, he would save his daughter to betroth to a man. All right. Sometimes he will sell his daughter. All right. Or sometimes the man who's interested in the father's daughter will pay a dowry, all right, for her to be saved, betrothed unto him. Or sometimes the marriage could be what's called a business transaction. They will make a league with another family and they would join in, all right, and whatever is discussed behind closed doors that this particular son-in-law has to do with their daughter, or vice versa, to carry out that league or an agreement. All right. And 9 times out of 10, the Most High Yahweh knew, all right, that because when you read the history, all right, of the Canaanites, okay, and what they did in the land, you can read that in the book of Wisdom of Solomon. All right, let me just grab that real quick. Let's grab Wisdom of Solomon. All right, the 12th chapter. Okay. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2. Salakia chapter 12, start at verse 1. It says, "For thine uncorruptible spirit is in all things. Therefore chasten thou them by little and little that offend, and warnest them by putting them in remembrance, wherein they have offended, they leaving their wickedness, they may believe on thee, O Lord." Right? And let me see here. Verse 3, it says, "For it was thy will to destroy by the hands of our fathers both those old inhabitants of thy holy land, whom thou hatest for doing most odious works of witchcrafts and wicked sacrifices." Okay, because who was the old inhabitants of thy holy land before we came in? It's talking about the Canaanites, because before Israel was named Israel, it was called Canaan. Okay, that's why when you get Genesis chapter 9, which let's grab that real quick. All right. Canaan was a cursed seed from the beginning. Okay. Genesis chapter 9. All right. At verse 25, it says, "And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." And Canaan did serve us during the time when Joshua was on the scene. And when you read, I believe it's either in the book of Numbers or Judges. I believe it's Judges. All right. We didn't utterly destroy all the Hamitic tribes. We put a majority of them to tributary. All right. Where they serve wood and water. All right. And that's in the scriptures. So just to get back to the point, it's going back to Wisdom of Solomon, the 12th chapter. But just to get back to the point. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, let's start at verse 10. The point is at verse 11. This is talking about the old inhabitants in the Holy Land, dealing with the seed of Canaan. It says, "But executing thy judgments upon them little by little, thou gavest them place of repentance, not being ignorant that they were a naughty generation, and that their malice was bred in them, and that their cogitation would never be changed." Verse 11, "For it was a cursed seed." It's talking about Genesis chapter 9 and verse 25, which we just read. "Cursed be Canaan from the beginning. Neither didst thou for fear of any man giving them pardon of those things wherein they sinned." Okay. This is one of the reasons why we were told not to do after the likings of what these nations did in the Holy Land. Okay. And one of the main reasons was when you get, let's get another, I believe it's Leviticus chapter 18. Yep. Laws on immoral relations, right? Leviticus chapter 18, verse 1. "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, say unto them, I am the Lord Yahweh your power, after the doings of the land of Egypt. wherein ye dwelt, ye shall not do. Okay. And if you guys want to know what the Egyptians were doing when the Israelites were under captivity, just look it up. Okay, and you'll see some of the abominable acts and works that they done. It says, and after the doings of the land of Canaan, which today is known as Israel, whether I bring you, ye shall not do, neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. Okay, and what were their ordinances? Well, when you read this whole entire chapter, okay, the things that are outlined for us not to do, these nations, in particular the Canaanites, this was the abominable acts that they were committing within the land before they got spewed out of the land. You see that? All right. So when you go and read Deuteronomy chapter 7 and 1, that was the main reason, or Salakia, I shouldn't say main reason, but there are many reasons why we were not to mess with these heathen nations. Okay, mainly the Hamitic tribes. Okay, because they were known to do everything that you read in Leviticus, the 18th chapter, and also read Wisdom of Solomon, the 12th chapter. All right, so that you can edify yourself to get some understanding on the history of those nations. All right. So now her statement to me on my live during TikTok was, all right, dealing with Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 4, was the fact that the main reason is because of us, turning to other gods and being abominable and leaving off from Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, which is true in a certain degree. However, if you read the very next verse, verse 5, it says, but thus shall ye deal with them, meaning in other words, but if you shall deal with them, what must we do? Ye shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their groves and burn their graven images with fire. You see that? With fire. Okay, because when we take down another nation, okay, part of us taking down that nation, all right, is they have to walk according to our ordinances and everything else like that. Okay. And to get an understanding of that, let's go to First Chronicles. I have lined up here. First Chronicles chapter 18. All right. It says David's kingdom strengthened. Right. You can also read this in a precept of 2 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 through 14. It says, now after this, it came to pass that David smote the Philistines and subdued them and took Gath and her towns out of the hands of Philistines. See that? And he smote Moab, and the Moabites became David's servants and brought gifts. So he took down the Philistines, he took down Moab, and David smote Hadarezer, king of Zobah, unto Hamath, as he went to establish his dominion by the river Euphrates. Right? It says, and David took from him 1,000 chariots and 7,000 horsemen and 20,000 footmen. David also hold all the chariot horses, but reserved of them 100 chariots. So as you read this whole chapter, this goes into what King David did to all the nations. All right. Verse 11, it says, them also King David dedicated unto the Lord with the silver and the gold that he brought from all these nations, from Edom, from Moab, and from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines, and from Amalek. You see that? And what did he do even with the Edomites? Verse 13, and he put garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became David's servants. Thus the Lord preserved David whithersoever he went. So this is pretty much what happened when we were on top under King David's rule. We took down all the heathen nations. And prior to taking them down, what David would have did was he would have broke their strongholds. He would have tore down their altars and everything. Okay, because David understood the scripture. He understood the will of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Okay, so let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 21, where it says domestic relations. And let's get some understanding on this really quickly. It says, verse 10, when thou goest forth to war against thine enemies, okay, and the Lord thy power hath delivered them into thine hands, and thou hast taken them captive, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman. Okay, in this case, this beautiful woman will be a heathen woman. Okay, because keep in mind the context is when we go to war against thy enemies, meaning what? These other heathen nations are our enemies. Read Psalms, the 83rd chapter. It goes into that. Okay. It says, verse 11, and seest among the captives a beautiful woman, and has a desire unto her, that thou wouldest have her to thy wife. Then thou shalt bring her home to thine house, and she shall shave her head and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and she shall remain in the house and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that, thou shalt go in unto her and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. So the law states that when we go to take down these other nations, okay, amongst these other nations, if we see a woman that we want to be with, that we just have to have, okay, according to the law, we have to take her in our house. We have to shave her head, par her nails, put on the raiment of her captivity, okay, of her enslavement. And we have to give her a full 28, 30 days, which is a full month, to bewail her father, meaning to mourn, because we would have killed her father and her mother, okay? We would have took them down. And after that time of her mourning, all right, then, okay, she will be ready for us to go in, meaning to have sex with her, all right, to make it official that she now belongs to us, which in this case, she will be a concubine, which means a lesser wife, okay? So according to the law in Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter, all right, this is the order on how we deal with the other heathen women, okay? And when we tried to explain this on the live, that woman, she was butthurt in her feelings. She didn't want to hear it because most likely, and then she's not the only one, but majority of you, the Negro woman, a lot of y'all don't understand it. Okay, and I got to put the brothers in here too, because you got a lot of brothers that get butthurt and they get in their feelings. Okay, yes, we're not supposed to make marriages with them, but you can have them as a concubine. And don't worry, we're going to get some more scriptures proving that it's okay to have them as a concubine. You're not, when you marry them, you can't marry them, because when you marry them, you make a league with them. You make a covenant. All right. And that's what we're not supposed to do. They're supposed to come in with us and serve our power and do things that we have them do. They have to walk in our ordinances, not us making an agreement with them. Okay. That's the difference, right? Let's continue on. Verse 14. And it shall be, if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will, but thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her, because thou hast humbled her, right? So you're not supposed, so basically, in other words, if after you've popped her, right, and you find nothing within her, she's not, doing what you want her to do, or whatever the case may be, all right, whatever the situation is, right, you can let her go, but you can't sell her for money, nor can you make merchandise out of her, all right, because you've humbled her, meaning because you've taken her, okay? So now that we got that out the way, let's grab a quick precept, and let's go to Numbers chapter 31 to show you what Moses did, all right? Here we have the slaughter of Midian. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites. Afterward shalt thou be gathered unto thy people. And Moses spake unto the people, saying, arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites, and avenge the Lord of Midian. All right. So when you drop down, let's get straight to the point. Yep. Division of the booty, man. All right, let's see here. Let's get straight to the point. Actually, no, I went up too far. Yeah, here we go. Numbers chapter 31, and we'll start at verse 13. Now watch this. Watch what Moses tells the congregation of Israel after they went and took down the Midianites. Now keep in mind, we just read in Deuteronomy the 21st chapter on what we are supposed to do, okay, according to the law when we take down another nation and if we see a beautiful woman. Watch this, showing you that it's pretty much all throughout the scriptures. Numbers chapter 31, verse 13. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth, meaning he was angry, with the officers of the hosts, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. Now watch this, verse 15. And Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive from those heathen nations? Right? Because the Midianites were a heathen nation. Okay. Verse 16. Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord Yahweh in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of Yahweh. All right. And you can go and read that starting at Numbers chapter 22 to Numbers chapter 24 to get the history on what they did, if you want to read it. Now, therefore, kill every male. So every man among the little ones, every boy child, kill him, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. So even kill the women who had already had sex by knowing a man, kill them as well. But watch this, verse 18. But all the women, children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves, concubines. So any woman, okay, any girl that have not known a man, meaning she has not grown up in age and then lost her virginity to a man, keep for yourselves. And this is what we did in the ancient world, proving that we can have these other heathen women as concubines. Okay. Showing you that this overrides what's being said here, because what we did when you read verse 5, because her mentality was we're not supposed to be with them regardless. And the reason why her mentality is like that is because she's still stuck on Western colonization viewpoint. All right. Now, the scriptures is very clear. Right. Let's grab a precept real quick. Let's get 2nd Esdras chapter 14. All right. And verse 34. Because when you come into this truth, you have to do away with what you've learned. All right. 2nd Esdras chapter 13, Salakia chapter 14, verse 34. It says, therefore, if so be that you will subdue your own understanding. Okay. You have to subdue your own understanding. You have to not come into the truth with the Western culture mindset, because it's going to throw you off. See, she's thinking that when it says we can don't ever marry them, to the person that's unlearned, okay, it's easy for a person to take out of context and say, okay, well, we can never be with them. You're not supposed to be with them, period. Because the women in this society have been taught monogamous. Okay, monogamy meaning that a man is only supposed to be with one woman, which is not true. Okay, that is not a custom of an Israelite man. Okay, an Israelite man can be with multiple women, whether it be an Israelite wife or a heathen woman for a concubine. Okay, so the reason why she had a problem with this and she got emotional is because she doesn't understand that we actually have a law that when we take down enemy that is of ours, right, of another nation, but in the midst of taking them down, if we see a beautiful woman, we can have her. She has to go through 30 days of purification and mourning the loss of her father and mother because we would have slaughtered them. And then after that time frame is up, we can go in unto her to make it official. That's what she's not understanding. And we read it here also in Numbers, the 31st chapter. Moses told them, slay the men and kill the women who have no man, but for the women who are pretty much virgins, okay, who have not been defiled by a man going into them, okay, keep for yourselves. You see that? Even Moses understood the law. All right. So to sit up there and say, and this is the problem. Now let's deal with, let's grab first, what is it? 2 Kings, 1 Kings chapter 11. No, hold on. 2 Kings chapter 11. Nah, it was 1 Kings chapter 11. Salakia. Let's deal with this because you'll have some people that come, they want to use Ezra and then they want to use King Solomon. Well, let's deal with it, right? All right. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto children of Israel, ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. What did he do? He clave unto these in love, because eventually what happened was he got to an old age and those women turned his heart away from them. Now he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And it tells you right here, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. So he pretty much made a league and a covenant with them. Okay. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord, his power, as was the heart of David, his father, because David had concubines. The Lord didn't get mad at David. Let's read that. This is 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 13. And David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem after he was come from Hebron, and there were yet sons and daughters born to David. Okay. All you got to do is type in David concubines, right? And to see what precepts come up. Right. Here's another one. 2 Samuel chapter 20. All right. Sheba's revolt. And there happened to be there a man of Belial, whose name was Sheba, the son of Bakri, a Benjamite. And he blew a trumpet and said, we have no part in David, neither have we inheritance in the son of Jesse, every man to his tents, O Israel. So every man of Israel went up from after David and followed Sheba, the son of Bakri. But the men of Judah clave unto their king from Jordan even to Israel, even to Jerusalem. Okay, Salakia. Verse 3. And David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, and put them inward, and fed them, but went not in unto them, meaning he didn't go and sleep with them. So they were shut up unto the day of their death, living in widowhood, because when you understand the story, one of his sons slept with his concubines. This was the difference on why his heart was in the right place. Let me see here. Yeah, here it is right here. 2 Samuel chapter 16. And we'll start at verse 20. It says, then said Absalom to Ahithophel, give counsel among you what we shall do. And Ahithophel said unto Absalom, go in unto thy father's concubines. See that? Go in unto thy father's concubines, which he hath left to keep the house, and all Israel shall hear that thou art abhorred of thy father, meaning detested. Then shall the hands of all that are with thee be strong. So they spread Absalom a tent up upon the top of his house, and Absalom went in unto his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel. All right. Which is in our law, you're not supposed to do that. Let's grab it. Leviticus chapter 18, and let's find the law. Let's see here. The nakedness. Let me see if I can get it in the NLT real quick for y'all, real quick. Salakia. And Lord's will, Yahweh Ratazah, this lesson is edifying. Here it is right here, verse 8. Leviticus chapter 18, verse 8. What does the law say? Do not have sexual relations with any of your father's wives, for this would violate your father. But what did Absalom do? Let's grab it again. 2 Samuel chapter 16. What did he do? Verse 22. So they set up a tent on a palace of the palace roof where everyone could see it. And Absalom went in and had sex with his father's concubines. Now, we just read in the law, Leviticus 18:8, he wasn't supposed to do that, right? But that's just a little backstory. So going back to right, 2 Samuel chapter 20, all right, proving that, David, he had concubines, but the difference between him and his son, King Solomon, outside of his son Absalom, was when David heard about it. It says here in verse 3, let's read it again. And David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, whom he had left to keep the house, and put them inward and fed them, but went not in unto them. So they were shut up unto the day of their death, living in widowhood. So he pretty much asked them out because he heard of the account of what his son Absalom did. Okay, so he pretty much left them up, all right, until they died. He didn't have nothing to do with them. So he was in order. That's the difference. David was in order. Okay, David understood. Okay, he understood the law, right? Which, let's grab that. That's Psalms 119, proving that, see, David's heart was in the right place. All right, Psalms chapter 119, all the way down in verse 104. It says, through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. You see that? David, that's why the Most High, Yahweh, always took a liking unto David. Okay, because David's heart was in the right place, as opposed to his son, King Solomon. Now let's go back to 1 Kings 11 and read the actual sin, because the sin wasn't the fact that Solomon married these heathen women. All right, here's the sin. For it came, verse 4, for it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his power. See that? As was the heart of David his father, which we read the account of David. It says, for Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. Now, if you guys want to go further, for those of you who are history fanatics, all you got to do is look up those goddesses, right? And let's see. Ashtoreth was a goddess in the ancient Near East who appears several times in Bible with different versions of her name. Biblical text spoke of the Queen of Heaven, which also goes back to the name Semiramis, going back to the Tower of Babel, right? If you go to Wikipedia, all right, it'll give you particularly the type of gods that in the nations, all right, not gods, Salaki, the type of nations that actually worship this particular god, right? And she goes under many different names, all right? And she was known as a fertility goddess, okay? A fertility deity is a god or goddess associated with fertility, sex, pregnancy, childbirth, and crops. So King David took a liking unto this, okay? Because he went after them by building groves, right? Let's continue to read verse 6. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord Yahweh and went not fully after the Lord Yahweh as did David, his father. That's the difference. See, David, all right, kept his emotions intact, and he didn't let his concubines take his heart away from Yahweh. He had them in order. That's why his heart was in the right place. But you see, Solomon, all right, after getting up on age, eventually gave in, okay, through love, and he did whatever his wives asked him to do. Here's another sin. Verse 7. Then did Solomon build an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Now, what did we just read in Deuteronomy 7? Going back to Deuteronomy 7 and 5. But thus shall ye deal with them, meaning if we're going to deal, and it's talking about these nations at the time. All right, let's keep the context in mind. But this can also be taken into account for the rest of other nations that we deal with. It says, but thus shall ye deal with them. Okay, ye shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their groves and burn their graven images with fire. Okay, he didn't do that. Okay, he did not do that. So going back, right, it says, for Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites, and he did evil, and he built high places. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, see that, which burnt incest and sacrifice unto their God. So he made a league because he loved them, and because he was up on old age, okay, he sought out, because it tells you even in the book of Ecclesiastes that he sought out, all the folly and everything, what was good, what was wicked and everything. And this was upon his wickedness. Okay. So now let's go to, I think it's First King, the 23rd chapter. No, what is Second King, 23rd chapter? Yeah. Now watch, when he came in, watch what he did. 2 Kings 23 and 4. And the king commanded Hilkiah, the high priest, and the priests of the second order, and the keepers of the door, to bring forth out of the temple of the Lord Yahweh all the vessels that were made for Baal, and for the grove, and for all the host of heaven. And he burned them without Jerusalem in the fields of Kidron, and carried the ashes of them unto Bethel. And he put down the idolatrous priests whom the kings of Judah had ordained to burn incense in the high places in the cities of Judah and in the places round about Jerusalem. Them also that burned incense unto Baal, to the sun and to the moon and to the planets and to all the hosts of heaven. Man, Jake was just out of control. How much more so now than today? It says, and he brought out the grove from the house of Yahweh without Jerusalem unto the brook Kidron, and burned it at the brook Kidron, and stamped it small to powder, and cast the powder thereof upon the graves of the children of the people. You see that? And he brake down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of Yahweh, where the women wove hangings of the grove. All right. So all of this stuff he took down, which is what we were supposed to do when dealing with these nations. Verse 13, here's the point. In the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the Mount Corruption, which Solomon, the king of Israel, had builded for Ashtoreth, the abominations and of all those nations. What did Josiah did? And he brake in pieces the images and cut down the groves and filled their places with the bones of men. Going back to what? Deuteronomy 7 and 5. But if ye shall deal with them, destroy their altars, break down their images, and cut down their groves. That was the sin that Solomon did, right? Let's deal with Ezra, because you'll have some people to bring up, but you're not supposed to be doing that, right? Mixed marriages, okay? Ezra chapter 9, verse 1. Now these things were done. The princes came to me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according to their abominations, even of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites, right? For they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Meaning they made a league, they made a covenant with them, which was what we're not supposed to do. That's what it means when you marry. That's all it's saying here. If they was going to deal with them, they had to deal with them in a way of a concubine, right? When it says, for they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, meaning they made a covenant with those nations, say, okay, we'll deal with you like this if you give us, this or the third or whatever the case may be. Okay. It says here, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and the rulers have been chief in this trespass. And when I heard this thing, I rent my garment and my mantle and plucked off the hair of my head and of my beard and sat down astonished. Then were assembled unto me everyone that trembled at the words of the Most High of Israel because of the transgression of those that had been carried away. And I sat astonished until the evening sacrifice. Now, let's because it just, let's see if I can actually grab the sin. Let's go to, we got to get Nahum, or not Nahum, but Nehemiah. I think it's 13. No, I think it's 8. Salakia. Because you got to understand, okay, what they actually did, man. A lot of y'all don't understand. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, this is a good chapter 2. Foreigners excluded. You can read that. But let me see if I can find. Because there's another precept in Nahum. Right? There's another. Salakia, give me a second. Okay, Salakia. So I had it right. I had to go down further. Mixed marriage is forbidden. Nahum chapter 13, we'll start at verse 23. It says, in those days also saw I the Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. Now here's the sin. Okay. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. And I contended with them and cursed them and smote certain of them and plucked off their hair. And a little side note, he cursed them out, showing you, all right, that even the prophets were cussing out Israel, because you'll have people to say you're not supposed to be cussing and dealing with the scriptures. And man, shut up. All right. You don't even understand the scriptures, for those of y'all who want to come up at us like that. All right. Go back and read and study. But it says here, and plucked off their hair and made them swear by the Most High, saying, ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons for yourselves. Did not King Solomon of Israel sin by these? You see what I mean? So the actual sin wasn't the fact by them actually just marrying them, but it's what that they did prior to marrying them, the league and the covenant that they made. Their kids started to take on their other speeches, which led them, when you read the whole book of Nehemiah, it wasn't the fact not only were their children learning the language off the heathen nations, but also they were worshiping their gods. Okay. It says here, yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his power, and the Most High made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our power in marrying strange wives? Because to marry, meaning that you're making a covenant with that person. And when you make a covenant in a league with that person, right, that you're taking on, you're basically joining their house with your house. So in the likes of, you'll start to do things, all right, that their family does and stuff like that. That's where it becomes wrong. When you take that heathen woman in your household, she is supposed to follow under your ordinances through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. She is a concubine. That's why, going back to Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter, Okay. The order. It's all about the order. Okay. And if, as it says, verse 14, and it shall be if thou have no delight in her, then thou shalt let her go whither she will. But thou shalt not sell her at all for money. Thou shalt not make merchandise of her because thou hast humbled her. So if she doesn't do according to what, you have her, you can get rid of her. Let's read it in the NLT. But if you marry her and she does not please you, you must let her go free. Okay. A form of pleasing can be she doesn't, do what she, you tell her to do around or whatever. She just keeps bucking up. All right. Because it's not just about she doesn't please you in the bedroom, but it's also more to that. All right. If she doesn't, if she doesn't apply to your lordship over in the household, okay. In other words, she doesn't please you, whatever, let her go. All right. You're not supposed to be a simp like what our forefather King Solomon did and the rest of our forefathers who let the woman take control. And the kids start following after them. Oh, it's okay. We're going to come here, bow down, worship here. We're going to celebrate this holiday. Much like what's going on today. All right. You'll have brothers that coming in the truth, and we get asked all the time, what do we do in our household when our family members, our wives, our children are still celebrating the holidays, but we're not doing. A lot of brothers and sisters and even sisters who have husbands, they don't know what to do. All right. So what happens is because they love them so much, they just give in and then they allow for it to be OK. But that's not no. All right. And just to get back to the topic at hand, because I don't want to digress. But, you being the Israelite men, if you're dealing with a heathen woman, you're not supposed to be taking practice in what her and her family does. If she's going to be with you, she has to get with your program. Plain and simple. All right. So let's get some examples. Judges chapter 14. Okay. Showing you that the Most High was down for Samson to marry a Philistine who was a heathen woman. All right. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath for the daughters of Philistines. And he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me to wife. Then his father and his mother said unto him, is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren or among all my people that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. Now watch this. This is why Yahweh allowed for Samson to have a heathen concubine to wife. But his father, and when I say to have a heathen concubine to wife, I'm talking about to take a heathen woman as a lesser wife. Okay, because we're going to look up that terminology. It says, but his father and his mother knew not that it was of the Lord Yahweh that he sought in an occasion against the Philistines. For at that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So the Lord Yahweh was using that particular woman, allowing for Samson to be with that heathen woman because it was for the occasion to actually come up against the Philistines. OK, and this is why you guys have to study. All right. And go into the history. OK, there's many different stories on our men. All right. Our forefathers having concubines, which we are allowed to have concubines. Now, real quick, let's look that up.
Concubine.
Historical and polygamous societies, a woman who lives with a man but has lower status than his wife or wives. Okay, a mistress. Okay, what is the role of a concubine? It says the origins for a male to hold a concubine were for sexual pleasure and to ensure numerous children. All right, and this is where this is pretty much where, what do they call it? Surrogate mother started, because if you want to get technical, Hagar, according to the Bible, okay, she was the one that helped Abraham and Sarah bring seed through Abraham. So she will be the first known woman of surrogate that's mentioned in the scriptures. right? Until that bondwoman was cast out of the house and the free woman was left, which was Sarah, pertaining to Galatians, the third chapter, the third and fourth chapter. All right, where the seed was calling Isaac instead of Ishmael, even though Ishmael was the eldest, right? But it says mostly concubines served to satisfy sexual pleasure, since any children that resulted from a mistress was considered illegitimate and unless allowed by their father had no rights of inheritance. You see that? What is the difference between a wife and a concubine? Now they have here, according to the Babylonian Talmud, the difference between a concubine and a legitimate wife was that the latter received a ketubah, and her marriage was preceded by a formal brothel, which was not the case for a concubine. Nah, that's not it. All right, let's look up let's get real quick. Let's get etymon line. All right, let's look up concubine real quick. It says a paramour, a woman who cohabits with a man without being married to him. You see that? So when we sit up there and we tell y'all, you can deal with the heathen woman, you just can't marry her. In this case, in modern terms, she will be considered what? A side chick girlfriend. That's it. You will be upfront with her to say, look, I'm not expecting to walk you down the aisle. We ain't going to be doing this. This is what it is. So if you can deal with it, this is what you'll be known. Okay. That's pretty much all she is. She's just a secondary side chick. Okay. When you dealing with your woman, all right, in a household who you're probably married to or whatever. All right. And, I don't know, you may be going through stuff with her. She ain't really, things ain't working out, or she on that time. Well, guess what? You have your concubine. Okay. It says also in reference to Hebrew, Greek, Roman, and other civilizations where the position was recognized by law, a wife of inferior condition, a secondary wife. Okay. And you can, look this up on your own, but I'm just giving you, all right, the rundown, man. This is what it is. All right. So going back to that woman, all right, bringing out Deuteronomy Chapter 7 as a means to justify her stance that we're not supposed to have anything to do with the other heathen nations. No, we can and we will. Let's close it out with Isaiah chapter 14 just to prove that. Isaiah chapter 14, first two verses. It says, "For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land, okay, of the Lord Yahweh for servants and handmaids, okay, and they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." So we're going to rule over our oppressors. The people that is talking about in verse 2 is talking about the Israelites. Shall take them. The them is representing these other heathen nations, and we're going to possess them. Okay, what does it mean to possess something? That means you have ownership of it. You rule over it. Okay, have as belonging to one, own, right? Own, have, be the owner of, having one's possession, be in the possession of. So what do you think is going to happen when we have those handmaids? They're going to be concubines, right? What do you think a maiden is, man? Right.
Strong's H 8198. Shivcha.
It says a maid servant, slave girl, maid servant as belonging to a mistress, of address, speaker, humility. It says a female slave, Slakia. It says a female slave as a member of the household, bond, handmaid, maiden, servant, wench, bedwoman, woman servant. What is a wench? Let's look that up real quick. All right. Wench, archaic or humorous, a girl or young woman. Archaic, a prostitute. All right. It says here, abbreviation obsolete, child, servant, prostitute, perhaps related to Old English. Let's look it up further because you got to learn how to look things up further.
Wench.
Yeah, and they used to call our women bed wenches, right? Let me see if I can get that. And there you go. Bed wench, plural bed wenches, a low status concubine. See that? Often a slave or captive. And what did they do? African American vernacular slang, derogatory, offensive, a so-called black woman who dates white people, often accused of seeking privileges. And the best movie for that, okay, was Rosewood. This guy right here. He had bed wenches. At the start of the movie, he's banging out a bed wencher, a Hebrew slave. Go and watch the movie Rosewood. She was a concubine. All right? She was a concubine, man. All right, proving that we're going to have concubines in the kingdom. So let me do that one more time so y'all can see it. Okay? This is
Strong's H 8198. Shifcha. Shifcha.
And notice it translates in the following manner: handmaid, maid servant, bondwomen, maid, women servants, handmaids, bondmaids, servant, wench, which we looked up the word wench, which basically means that of a prostitute or a girl or a young girl. But when we looked up bed wenches, a bed wench, a low status concubine. You see that? A low status concubine, man. So we're going to have wenches in the kingdom. It's written. Okay. That's all a maid servant is. When you break it down, go learn how to look up your words. Okay. We're going to possess these other heathen nations for servants and handmaids. So what do you think is going to happen when we take down these other nations and take their women? We're going to, because remember, the laws are going to be written in us. We're going to go back to Deuteronomy chapter 21, and we're going to apply this law. If we see us among the captives a beautiful woman, and has a desire unto her that thou wouldest have her to thy wife, we're going to follow the law that's written. We're going to have concubines, man. So I don't know what this lady is going on about. All right. Because she got hurt in her feelings and she wanted to use verses 3 and 4. But hopefully you guys get the point and, the gesture as to dealing with the concubine and the wife, and the reason why the Most High was angry at King Solomon and why Ezra was pissed off with our forefathers for mixing in and worshiping the other gods and allowing their children to take on the customs by the languages and stuff like that. That was the true sin. Okay, because even, we read King David had concubines, but the difference was his heart was in the right place. He didn't allow for his concubines to rule over him and to force him to turn his heart away from Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. That's the difference. So, at the end of the day, we went over just an hour, but, I think the point has been made. Hopefully we can put this to rest now, and you guys have been edified. Until the next time, Shalom.